Well, we're all here. Let's do this thing.
All right. Good afternoon, all. We'd like to welcome you to our first webinar of 2021. We're happy to welcome back Matthew Landis from Filament Essential Services. If you guys have been with us for a while now, Matthew has done a couple of things for us. He spoke at our fall conference in 2019 in Omaha on using video, and then he recently did the peanut butter and chocolate back in July for us. So we'd like to welcome him back. Matthew has over 25 years career as a graphic designer, video producer, motion graphics animator, and marketing manager. His guiding principles of marketing include creating content that treats your customers like stars of the show and not just your audience, and using all channels of communication the way they are meant to be used, not the way we want to use them. So without further ado, we'll welcome Matthew.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. I am Matthew Landis. I'm the Director of Branding and Video here at Filament Essential Services. And welcome to the maiden voyage of Zoom Like a Boss. Before we get too far along the lines here, I do need to at least mention a little bit about Filament Essential Services. We are a nonprofit with a mission of helping other nonprofits fulfill their mission. We offer a wide variety of services: branding, video, data security, tech support. We have a content management system for websites. We have a couple of apps, one that lets you update your site on the go, and another one that helps you connect with your users, that they can, the app that they can get for free on their Androids or Apple phones. And we do payroll and bookkeeping. Oftentimes we find what happens in nonprofit organizations is that we don't have a lot of staff, and so we end up having to do things that are outside of our area of expertise, which takes us twice as long to do them half as well. Well, leave that kind of stuff to the experts. We've done this kind of thing, most of these services, for more than 35 years now, and we'd love to help out whatever organization we can. So if there's something along these lines that appeals to you, I'll have my email up at the end, and be sure and reach out to me. When you see this slide, I want you to turn your cameras on. I want to see some smiling faces. I'm looking for some feedback. I'm looking for some yeses or some nos, or hey, doing great, or slow down, or oh my gosh, you're putting me to sleep, something along those lines. But then there's a couple of other things here that you might do just for better viewing for you. Hopefully there's a drop down that you can find that says side by side with speaker. And what I'm going for here is there's a way to have the slides on one side and me on the other. And I've pinned myself here so that hopefully I'm the most prominent one, and I should be the only one talking generally. So you'd be able to see those side by side, and it's just a way to help stay engaged rather than just watching slides or just watching my dumb face. So having both of those to look back and forth, I think, helps. The other thing that I like to do generally is anywhere you have on one of the video screens, it says ask to unmute or mute or whatever, and there's that blue button with the 3 bars. Just go ahead and hide non-video participants so that you're only seeing people who have their video on. So just a couple of things there, quick tips right out of the gate to help you, not just with this meeting, but other meetings, to maybe make them a little bit more enjoyable. So, all ready to go? Let's get to the matter at hand while we're all here, which is learning about online meetings in general and Zoom in specific. And yes, that actually is actual security cam footage from my basement right now. But with the videos that we, the online meetings nowadays, they're ubiquitous. We're doing them all the time. Internally, we're doing them externally. It's a great way to connect. It's the next best thing to in-person. You get to see nonverbals, you get to share your screen, and it's also easy to get fatigued looking at yourself all day, sitting in one place, having to yell at your screen because you're not sure if your microphone's picking you up. It can wear you out. So what we're going to have for the rest of this presentation are some ways to get the most out of your Zoom meetings. We're going to make you the most credible and prominent that we can. And we're also going to find ways that if you're running meetings, to make them run a little bit better to reduce that fatigue. So why is it important to pay attention to your Zoom skills? First and foremost, it enhances your credibility. As you look up and down, that stream of videos, of other people, we want you to be the one that jumps out. And so we've got some tips to help that happen. A good online presence enhances your credibility, and we take you more seriously. Likewise, if you have a bad one, it makes you look bad, maybe literally. But it also reflects how seriously you're taking the meeting. If you're in a place with a lot of noise, rotten background, not dressed for the part, that tells me that you're not taking it seriously. And not only that, remember, you're representing your organization, and it's an extension of your brand. As a matter of fact, anything that influences somebody's perception of your organization is branding. So anytime you're out in public, meeting with people outside of your office, you are an extension of your brand. And so to take it seriously so that it reflects well. If I bungle this thing today, and next week you realize that you guys want some videos for your websites, but I've bungled this thing so badly, or am I the guy that you're going to trust to do that? Maybe, maybe not. But I definitely want to put myself in the best position that I can to instill that confidence. So it also helps you maintain productivity. The eye to eye, the nonverbals really helps you understand situations more. Even when you're on the phone, somebody can say something. How sarcastic are they if I can't see that eye roll? But even more so, that ability to share your screen, look at documents together on the video online meetings can really keep things productive. I think there's a lot of organizations out there saying, gosh, with this online meeting situation, do we really need to have brick and mortar office space? Do we really need to meet in person? Maybe we'll just do this from now on, or more commonly, because it's a good way to stay productive. And you also have an opportunity to improve relationships. This is a unique medium, and it offers you some really unique ways to show your personality and learn more about the personality of the people that you're meeting with. And I'll have some more examples of that as we go along. But if you take no other thing away from this webinar, this is it. You are the star of your show. The main thing you can do is set yourself up to shine. Be a rock star. Dominate. Reduce the distractions around you. Prepare yourself well when you set up. Feature yourself in your setup, and prepare ahead of time so that you know what you're doing. Make everything count. Do everything in your power to make this impression of you on that little screen and over the internet, over the audio, the best that you possibly can. That is what we're going to try and do here, is give you kind of tips and tricks to do that, whether you're just a participant or you're actually running a meeting. And here's the game plan to do that. First of all, we're going to talk about the aesthetic and the technical components. And one caveat, let me back up here. These are generally for your more formal meetings or your external meetings, with clients, with your board members, with the all company meetings. Your internal meetings where it's just you and your team, you guys have that shorthand. This is not my regular workspace. With this brick background, it's in my office, but I got a bunch of clutter around me. I've got a bunch of CDs, stuff on the wall, generally backlit. Sometimes I'm backlit, even though I try to turn that off, but there's a lot of distraction around. For my internal meetings, that's all right. But when I do want to make a good impression, I try to make a good impression, and I work hard to do that. And here, the aesthetic and technical components here is going to be the ways to do that. The content of your meetings, not just these technical aspects, but also dealing with fatigue, how to run online meetings differently potentially from in-person meetings to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. And then just some general online meeting etiquette, just kind of the good manners kind of thing that as soon as you read or hear these things, you're going to go, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. All right, I'll watch that. Sounds good. One thing as you see here that I'm not going to go over is your attire and your grooming. I assume we all kind of know that dress for success kind of thing. The only reason I mention it now, though, is I'm doing my research for this. It kept popping up in all of these articles, and I'm thinking, gosh, are people just rampantly out there disheveled going to meetings, or are they just filling space on articles? I don't know, but I'm going to leave this to you adults to, dress the part and groom and not mention. Well, I guess I did mention it, so there it is. I guess never mind. We are saying, look the part. And so now, just a quick cameras on for people. Give me the thumbs up if you can hear me, if everything's looking good. I'm going to keep on rolling here then. The aesthetic and technical components. This is the lion's share of what we should be talking about today. Your hardware and your software specifically. Your hardware is your microphone, headset, your audio situation, and your video situation, your camera. Can't stress this enough. Just get the best setup that you can. There is a real difference between modern, new, high-definition cameras and not. Even though Zoom and other platforms kind of throttle down the bandwidth, just having a better camera puts you on better footing than the next person. As an example, I'm using my phone because that's got a better camera than my laptop. I want to make a good impression, so I practiced how to use it, and that's what I'm using for this meeting. Almost all of the software platforms nowadays work on your phones. They've got great cameras. They plug in really well with headsets that give you great audio. I mean, it's a great combination. The catch about it is you might need to buy yourself a tripod so that you get it to the right level and you're holding it steady. $35, something like that. Definitely worth the investment. You've got a multi-$100 camera in your pocket. Get the use out of it. You can even use some of the filters and stuff on your phones and not just on your laptops. So maybe explore this as an option for you. At the same time, if you're buying a camera to stick on your desktop machine or something, they've got cheap ones out. Might do it in a pinch. If your hospital's paying for it, maybe, go up a notch or two. Like I say, you can just tell the difference. When you look up and down on that gallery, you're going to notice who's got the better camera compared to others. And it really helps that branding, that you are taking this seriously, that it's important to you to put your best foot forward, that you pay attention to these details. Likewise, the software. Make sure that you are choosing the most appropriate meeting platform. Webinar like this, you are beholden to whatever the person running the webinar has chosen. But if you're running the meeting, you get to choose. And it's time then to think, well, what does my audience want to use? I chose Zoom because I think that seems to be the most ubiquitous that you guys seem to have been using in the past, that you're the most comfortable with, and so that's the platform that I've chosen for that main reason. I'm a little bit more experienced with it than some of the other ones, but I like Skype, I like a couple of others, but this is the one that is most appropriate for you. So that's what I'm going for. But if it's something that you're not familiar with, that can also work against you. So it's kind of that balance of what is best for my audience and what is best for me, because you want to be confident and comfortable in the platform that you're working in. Towards that extent, use that software to its fullest. There's all kinds of settings and features that each different platform can do. Be aware of those to find out ways that can help you with whatever it is that you're presenting. I'm going to go through some of these settings as an example here in a minute. And then practice. Practice what you're going to do. I set up these, earlier this week I had 3 or 4 different audio settings, to try with the headset. And my best sound actually came from the earbuds you know, the microphone earbuds, but they're distracting and I didn't want them ruffling against my shirt because I couldn't hear that. So I didn't go for that because of that distraction element and went with plan B. I've got an external mic here, and so I practiced those two, got a friend to help me out and chose those. Today I was practicing and I found out that that evidently I'm pulling too much power and I blew a circuit on this. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I got it on a good strong circuit now. But practicing, can't overstate how important that is. That'll also help you, if you're practiced saying the words and doing these things, it also makes you look more credible. So here's some of the settings, the importance of checking your settings. As I said, each of these platforms has their own features and ways that they operate. Get to know yours. Go into those settings, go into those advanced tabs, find out what they can do. Here's some examples on Zoom. First and foremost, well, if you click that up arrow button on either your audio or video and it goes to settings, either way it goes to the same window. It just depends on which one defaults up, but it goes to the same place. Get to know these things, scroll through them. There's lots of question marks next to the confusing ones that'll help you understand what it does. Take that time to do that. It'll help you both on either end. So this one here is the first screen of the video settings, and the thing that I want to point out here is that touch up my appearance. This is great. It just kind of smooths out the skin a little bit in the entire broadcast. It's really, really nice. And you can see, where on my setting is, where that blue bar is, that blue button. I realize that it's the American tendency to believe, well, if some is good, more is better, and crank it to the top. Well, in that case, you're going to look all kind of blurry and conspicuous, and that's going to be distracting. So, find that happy medium, and you look like what you look like. Be proud of that. Be okay with that. We're just looking for a little bit of that augmentation. It's not going to make things, go drastically different. And then there's also one there that says adjust for low light. By default, it has auto, and it's generally pretty good, but if you've got a tricky light situation, either bright or dark, this is a setting that you can use to even that out. And then if you click advanced, always make sure that denoise setting at the top is on, because it really improves your video quality. It should be on by default, but just make sure. It can be kind of crunchy, or if there's red, it'll look kind of speckly, and that it kind of moves, and this kind of takes that noise away. And if your screen just generally looks kind of weird, here's some settings that you can try to fix whatever issue you may have. And there's a couple of good audio preferences to be aware of. To auto adjust your microphone can come in handy if you're having trouble. That auto suppress background, if your background is causing some issues, you can fidget with it there. That turn on original sound is only to be used if you are in a controlled studio quality room. So that's pretty generally not going to be any of us. The audio pass through, if you're using a video, is a different feature. I'll show you that here in a second. Shortcuts. These are great to know if you're running meetings so that you can just pop things on and off. They're great to know. The other thing is know how the space bar works in your platform, because they're not always the same. The space bar can be really handy to toggle on the mute button, on or off, just briefly to speak and then turn off. But on Zoom, it toggles on and off the last thing that you used. So if that was video, it's going to toggle on and off your video. So make sure that the last thing that you clicked on with your mouse is audio, and then your space bar works that way. But that's not that way with all platforms. Sometimes the space bar is just with the audio. So that's one of those things that you need to look out for. Moving on, if you're sharing a screen, if you're sharing a video, that share sound at the bottom is what allows that pass through. Now this generally is only if you have on a headset. So for example, when I was testing this out, I played that, Great Goals or whatever that video is, and the audio from my laptop, the speakers, was picked up by the microphone, so I didn't need to turn that on. But when I plugged in a headset, the audio is going into my ears, And so there's nothing for the microphone to pick up. And so that's where you click that share sound, and then whatever sound your laptop is making gets fed into Zoom and out to your audience. So this is another setting you watch out for and maybe need to test. When that optimized for a video clip, that's if you're actually going to show some full screen video. It helps widen the tube, make sure that you've got a high-speed internet, but it just helps produce, it sends video a lot more sharp. It's not as jerky as Zoom can be. So that's what that one is for. There's an advanced tab here too. There's that portion of the screen. If you're sharing with somebody, a screen with somebody, and you might have some personal information that you don't want shown, you can show just a portion of your screen, and that's in the advanced tab. So, the moral of the story, as you've heard me say probably, a lot right now, is check those settings, even what's behind the advanced tabs and buttons. There's some really good features that can help. Now, your settings, your backgrounds. You want to have a good, strong, professional setting. Distraction-free. Like I said, my natural setting is in my office, but it has all kinds of distractions. There was an example that I read online where somebody was in a clothing shop and they had all kinds of mannequins in the background, undressed mannequins in the background, and I found it really distracting and hard to concentrate on the person speaking, right? So that may be the one end of the bell curve, but just make sure that you're finding that balance between professional and boring that really features you. A natural background is best. My office didn't work, so I'm going in front of this brick background. I love brick backgrounds in general. I think they're warm coloring, they're interesting, they have a good texture. Whoever's in front, it helps them stand out, but we know exactly what it is and we just kind of stop paying attention to it, as opposed to, what's behind this background is just empty wall space. And that can actually get really kind of boring and isn't quite as engaging. And so I wouldn't do that. So like I say, natural background is best, because when you start doing your virtual backgrounds, including the blurred out background or a different background, you get those blocks, you get those chunks when you start moving around, right? Some of it doesn't, and that's especially common around your head. So for example, I've got dark hair, and if I had a dark background, it wouldn't know exactly where it is, and then all of a sudden I've got this funky halo going on around me as it's trying to figure out what to blur and what not to blur. And then when I use my hands, they're in and out of this blur. So if I've got a background, it's getting cut, my hands are getting cut out, that kind of thing. But if it's the choice between your really noisy natural background, it's sometimes better to put a virtual background on. That's your plan B. And your plan C, or don't ever do it, is those gimmicky backgrounds. So stay off the Starship Enterprise, stay off of the beach. One of the things that you're doing by that is communicating, well, this is all just kind of a joke to me. I'm here for a laugh, and it's not very professional. Like I say, in your internal meetings, that's a whole different ball of wax. My favorite was actually, I downloaded the video that looked like a virus's spinning. So, when we were first working from home, boy, I sure thought I was hilarious with that as my video background in my team meetings. Quickly put a kibosh to it. That joke got old really fast. And it just isn't professional, and it's distracting. As far as blurring your background, I'm not sure of Zoom's natural ability to do that. I know that most of my meetings are in Teams. Right where we have this virtual backgrounds, our version of that on Teams, one of them is blur background, and you click that and it's on. I don't think that they have that for Zoom. Quick Google check would probably help. But one of the things that I do instead is I have, you can see there, a blurred background that, I turn on my laser pointer. So this one is just a blurred background. That's not your actual background, but what's the difference? I just Google searched on blurred background. I have a Getty account. I downloaded something from there one of those times, and that was really handy. Somebody just came on the chat that said that it works on their school version of Zoom, which is great. Who was that? Can you unmute? And is this where it is?
Yeah, so it's in the backgrounds and filters, virtual backgrounds. But for some reason, my professional work account, it doesn't have it, but my school account does. So it's really weird. I don't know. I don't know what the difference would be.
Yeah, that's my experience too, which, being one of the leaders right now in the online meetings, you would think that Zoom would have that figured out by now. But this is the place where you can establish your virtual backgrounds. Now, some filters are on that next little tab there. These are all fun to play around with in your internal meetings, but there's also a few helpful ones. So I don't know which one this one is, but it's that third over you see there, that blue that's highlighted. And these are just some filters that help give things a bit more of a cinematic look. So for example, here is my natural setting, and it's just, you can tell that it just is what it is. It's not nearly as smooth or cinematic as that one. So having those filters can kind of help too. And I notice that it smooths the skin a little bit out, reduces some of the shadow and plays with the highlights a little bit. So enabling one of those filters might actually give you a better online presence than going without. So that's something else to try and play around with. I think it's much smoother than that natural. And like I say, I've even got one of those filters on my camera for this meeting. I think it's that first one that's boost, that makes this a little bit darker so that my face is a little bit more pronounced, to give it a little bit more personality, that hopefully you're focusing on my face, where my expressions are, rather than what a smart, handsome shirt I am wearing. Now, the next one here, camera position and framing. This is huge, and this one should ripple into your marketing. So first and foremost though, your camera at eye level. We want a straight on angle to put you in that strong position. Keeping it high will help those of us that might be a little sensitive of our double chins, for example, and save the rest of us from having to look up your nose the entire time. And it also then, if it gets too high, you start getting that security cam vibe, and it's kind of hard to really connect with the top of somebody's head. But having that straight eye level just really feels like you're making a much better, stronger connection. You want to fill the frame with you. It's our tendency to go ahead and be a little bit more diminished. This is how we love to take photographs historically. This is what, there's a lot of people with photos in their drawer like this. And look how much of a percentage of this frame I'm in, right? You're taking a picture of me, but I'm in a third of the screen compared to my surroundings, right? Now, if I just slide up here a little bit, look how much more I dominate this frame, how much more in focus I am, and what's the credibility difference between those two. You don't think about it. It's just one of those subconscious things. And also, one thing before I move on here is, as much as possible, look into the camera. It's how it feels like we are connecting, that we have, that we're making eye contact rather than looking at ourselves and our screens. I'm trying to not look at my notes as much as possible. It's my maiden voyage, so I do need the cheat sheets here a little bit. But my preference is to speak right into that, into the camera, so that it feels more like you and I are having a conversation, as opposed to me looking down here. Even though I like looking at you, you're now looking at the top of my head. I'm not making that eye contact, and it's not as engaging. In this situation, I am the literal star of this show, and you are the audience, and so I'm making a concerted effort to be engaging, and I think that makes a difference. So I want to also then Google headshots. And show you something here really quick, because this is the part that I hope will ripple into other parts of your organization. And that is, look at how people are typically cropping their headshots anymore. This guy over here, Noah, this is how we historically want to crop our headshots. Our board of directors, our head doctors. This is probably how they're cropped. Look at how less prominent that is compared to this bottom row of women as an example. That if you see these four next to that guy, who are you going to spend more time looking at? And it's because they are stronger in the frame. Don't be afraid to cut some of those heads off. I know there are people that is just a huge no-no. But if you look at general headshots anymore, we're over it. We want to see face. We want to see personality. This one on the bottom, this woman, look how diminished she looks in comparison to even the guy next to her. You know, it's very similar settings. That camera is in a pretty similar position, but because she is so far down in the frame, who am I going to ascribe more strength to? The eyes higher up in the frame. So these are headshots. I don't recommend, you know, the profile for your zoom, you know, or being off center for your zoom. It just looks weird. You know, we're looking to minimize distractions. That's one of the things here, and being off center will be one of those distractions. But, you know, this compared to this makes a really big difference, especially over the course of a longer meeting. And then to go ahead and let those kinds of croppings come into your marketing materials too. Audio. I'm here to tell you guys that we are more forgiving of bad video than we are of bad audio. You know, when I move around, I'm a little bit sluggish, you know, that's okay. If my audio was that sluggish, how hard would that be to pay attention to? So if you're going to spend attention on an upgrade and figuring out the next level, start with your audio. Try your headset, try your phone earbuds, try a USB microphone. Ask your friends, you know, what's the difference? You know, get one of your internal meetings together, you know, with just your team, and everybody bring all of your options and you take turns. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? And see which ones sound the best. That will make a huge difference to how engaging you are. And if you are using earbuds, you know, watch that it doesn't rub against your shirt, because that can also be annoying. And listen for static. I like also to use the wireless earbuds because then there isn't that distraction. But the pair that I have has static. So not going to use it. So testing those things out and finding out what your best audio solution will be a huge boost to being able to keep the concentration of your audience. Lighting is also exceptionally important, and it's an easy fix. Number one, your overhead lights are not flattering. Those fluorescent, those incandescent, you know, whatever those are, they wash you out. They put the bags under your eyes, you know, the shadows under your eyes. You know, I've got some folds here and they just accent those even more. That it is just the most unflattering light. Here's an easy fix. 2 desk lamps or 2 bedside lamps on either side of your camera. It's you know, then your light source is from the side, and it's generally softer light. You can put, you know, a light hand towel or cloth or handkerchief or something over it if it's too bright. The LEDs have different light temperatures that you can play with, but just getting rid of that overhead light, especially if it's, you know, if my overhead light is just a little bit behind me, you know, that's the worst. Then my face is in shadow, or if it's directly above me, it gives me that, you know, that haunted look. So paying attention to your lighting and just putting 2 lamps on either side of the camera is a great quick fix. But if you've got a nice bright window, face it, nothing beats a good natural light. That's how we're meant to be seen. That's how we're used to see. It brings out your natural colors. That is the best. Don't let it be behind you. It'll put you in darkness and shadow, and all you'll see is this huge wash of light behind you. But having it in front of you, that is a great option for lighting. Any questions? If you've got any questions that I can answer, speak up. No. Oh, Parker, how'd you end up here? This little dog, I'm telling you, she just pops up everywhere she's not supposed to be. This is my new pup, Parker. So while Parker's here, maybe let's get a quick stretch. you know, get some neck rolls here. If you've got a beverage, go ahead and take a breather here. I know I've been prattling on quite a bit. You probably need just a break. Just take a minute here. Kind of refresh. Okay, now we can engage again, right? This is one of those techniques to help break through fatigue. You know, that it's strenuous sitting here listening to me nonstop for an hour. Just being able to take a quick break, roll your head around, you know, stand up and stretch if you need to. Build opportunities like that in. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's one of these things here in running a meeting. So we're going to go on ahead. Here are some best practices for running a good online meeting. Number one, keeping people engaged is really important to your online meeting situation, and also being aware that fatigue and exhaustion is real. So here's the big caveat. Are you sure that your video meeting is really necessary? It's hard to keep people engaged, and it really can contribute to that fatigue, so know what you're doing if the answer is yes. Here are some things to do. Number one, vary what we're doing. I haven't done a very good job of this because most of my slides are text. It would be better if I could put some visuals in there occasionally to break things up. There's a show called The Actors Studio. And I've learned more great life lessons on that. It's where James Lipton at one of the acting schools in the country interviews stars of, you know, actors and directors and writers. And one of the things that I heard on that show from an actor is, as an actor, you can't make a point by yelling if your character is yelling all the time. That you have to vary your delivery. Now the genius is that works on just about every style of communication. If all of your text looks the same, how do I know what to pay attention to? If I'm speaking to you in exactly the same type of monotone or an exact same inflection, how do I know what's really important? Same thing with my visuals. If I'm using text and the same type of text the whole time, it's harder to pick out what are the things. That's why at the very beginning I had a blue background with white text that showed you the most important thing to pay attention to. Try and vary the visual style of your presentation. I had some of those screenshots. That helps. My etiquette, those are all memes. That helps. But vary what you're doing to help break that fatigue. And also be sensitive about the length of your meeting. Be organized. Prepare an agenda, know what you're doing, be clear about your goals, and stay on topic. Don't let a meeting go 60 minutes if it can be handled in 30. If you are filling it, make sure that there's personality, that there's engagement, that you're really connecting with people and they aren't just staring at the screen and staring at themselves. It is exhausting being on camera all the time, straining to hear over bad audio and trying to connect on sometimes bad video. And if you're on, you get this, that mirror effect, where you're just staring at yourself all the time and critiquing and getting spaced off. So really try and condense your meetings and be aware of fatigue that is real, and do anything that you can to help break out of it. Online meeting etiquette. I saw a chat quick. Unmute real quick and ask me your question. I missed it on the chat. Something about the etiquette.
Yeah, my question was, do you agree that, if assuming you're doing a meeting with external, not particularly people who know each other well, do you agree that sort of the host usually sets the standard in terms of if we're going with video or not with video for the meeting for in that sort of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, whoever is running the show is running the show, and you should take your nods, from them, especially if it's a regular type of meeting. If I come to if we have this meeting between this group of us regularly, and I'm running the meeting, and I have this kind of setup, the tendency will want to be for you to kind of match. And so as that leader too, I need to be cognizant of that. Am I setting the right tone? Am I setting the right bar? If I am just sitting in a coffee shop with background noise, I'm telling you that that's okay. that we will look for cues from the person running the show as to what is appropriate. So I definitely think that taking cues from that person makes sense, whether we do it consciously or not. That is just natural. And if you are the one running the meeting, know that that is going to trickle down. Great question. So here's some things about online meeting etiquette. This is a video platform. It is meant to be face-to-face. In this kind of a presentation where it's me talking to an audience, I get it. But if this is a staff meeting, why don't you have your video on? Even when I'm making interpersonal video calls within my organization, we've got a 4-person meeting. Why aren't you sharing your video? There's just all kinds of questions that pop into our head that are distracting now, as opposed to just, we look how we look. You're going to be in meetings today. Prepare for it. We're used to being in person where we kept ourselves groomed. What's wrong with that at home too? It helps you set aside your work day and your play day too. If you start blurring those distinctions, that's also where fatigue hits. So use your video as a good video in-person substitute and regard it as such. Dress appropriately, show yourself on your webcam, be involved. If you aren't, it also might show that you're just not a priority, and that's not a message you want to send. Hands off your keyboard. A lot of people will take notes. Try just using, a pad of paper while you can, because if you are like most people, your microphone is on your laptop that you're using, and when you type on your laptop, it sounds like a hailstorm. At least mute yourself if that's the way that you have to take notes. But also when I hear typing, I'm wondering, are you even paying attention, or are you sending an email? Are you having an IM chat with somebody else? Are you really paying attention? So it's just a matter of etiquette to stay engaged. That's another one of these things, and they all kind of, revolve around each other here and are kind of, hand in hand with each other. But keeping your hands off your keyboard, number one, the audio distraction is there, but then also just making sure that people know that you have their undivided attention. Mute yourself. This is great if you are in a noisy place. If there's a lot of people, even just having a lot of people not on mute contributes to a lot of noise. If you got a couple of coworkers on the same one of you are going to start feeding back. So make sure that you are on mute and know your space bar, know your workaround to get yourself unmuted, because the phrase of 2020 and now beyond, of course, everybody, is you're on mute. We hate it. We hate it. We hate hearing it. We hate saying it. It's awkward when it happens. You get that nervous laugh and, it's the worst. So this is just something to be cognizant of. And this, again, is where you're learning your shortcuts, learning what your space bar does can help get in a habit of, for example, muting yourself and using that space bar just when you want to talk. If you just get into that habit, that can help. But muting yourself, especially if you're in a loud background or in a place with a loud background, really helps. And participate. Even if it's in the greetings, just saying hello, or small talk at the beginning or end. If you've made the effort to be there, get credit for it at the very least, right? But if you don't participate, what is that saying about you? Do I think, I don't know if you're engaged or not. I don't know if I've connected with you or not. We are doing this, substitute for in-person meetings. I get that, that we're shy, but even just a thanks, I appreciate it. If you are shy and in meetings, sitting around the table, I'm going to be able to gauge, your body language the entire time. In these online meetings, I'm paying attention to other things and might not quite get that body language to know. Help me out. Say, okay, yep, great, that sounded great, appreciate it, thanks a lot. If that's all you contribute, even if that's it, that really helps to let people know where you're at and contribute, and we're all participating in this meeting. Stay put, stay present. This is that whole, be engaged. If I'm getting up, what is that saying? If I'm, got my phone over here and I'm checking that text here a little bit. How much is that saying how important you are? So put your phones away, clear your desk, tune into this meeting when you're in this meeting. And don't eat. In your personal groups, that makes sense, especially in those, 8:30 morning meetings or something, if you need that breakfast bar or something. It's just rude. You might be getting stuff in your teeth. I've got a beard, get caught in that. That's not awesome. But it's that, it piggybacks on all the rest of these things. That, are you staying present and paying attention? Are you taking this meeting seriously? Am I showing you that you're a priority? And there's also then, the propensity for rappers that, they won't go unnoticed. There's one meeting that I have in particular with some coworkers that if there's any kind of a wrapper, oh my goodness, oh, who's eating? What do you got? What is it? And all of a sudden we're 5 minutes down this rabbit hole of who's got what food, and now it's, what could have been a 15-minute meeting is now 25 minutes because we're talking about the wrapper. Drinks are an exception, especially if it's coffee. I mean, I'd much rather have the caffeinated you than the non-caffeinated you, all things being equal, right? If you need that coffee, you drink that coffee. Drinking water is healthy. That's fine. It's just kind of that natural being. We kind of make an exception for that, for drinking water. But the bonus tip is that, when you've got your wine in your glass, to blow on it so that people know your tea is hot, right? So that's what I have for you today. Thank you for your attention. I hope this was engaging enough. I tried to spice up visuals, tried to use the best background I could, tried to use the best technical setup that I could, and hopefully this is all kind of combined to show what a difference in trying to level up your online presence can make. Here's my email address. I think you can also get it from some of the organizers here if you've got some other questions. But quick, we've got about 5 minutes left. What didn't I touch? What even better yet, what tips do you have that I didn't mention?
I have a question.
Yes,
or
please.
kind of a question. So when you are leading the meeting, do you think it's better to start by assuming not everyone has the same level of working with Zoom as you do, so it's best to kind of give a few of those tips before you get started?
Yes. And that's exactly what I did. Those 2 little screenshots at the very beginning, those are some things that I think just helps make Zoom a better experience, where you turn off the non-video people in your gallery view rather than having, some people in, some people out, seeing, some people have, a photo, some people don't. Just reducing that clutter, I think, is a much better experience. And then also that split view, then I think it's going to, be better for you as an experience to have those. You probably don't know about it, so I at least suggested that to you. You can also ask how many of you guys are familiar with Zoom. And then going through, here's how you mute or how you unmute, and telling them ahead of time. I had this set where you're all on mute right now. So if you have something to say, make sure that you unmute. I didn't give those directions ahead of time, and that's a good thought. Next time I will. I think that's a really good suggestion, is to not assume a level of knowledge. That even if it's some quick basics, some ground rules, some about the platform ahead of time, I think makes great sense.
You could even think of it like the beginning of meetings that you go to in person, where the bathrooms are down that hall, the handouts are on that table. They do the little ground rules before you get started. If you approach it that way, it's not offensive to anyone.
Telling them if there's going to be questions, if you want to be interrupted, or if you've got stopping points, to ask. If you're paying attention to the chat or not. All of these things I think are great things to consider and lay the groundwork ahead of time. Yeah, good one, Dan.
I have a question.
Sure.
because I feel like I'm in a safe place here to ask this. I
You are.
notice that I do a lot of hands to face kinds of things. I'm not, when I'm presenting, I wouldn't do that, except for I just did. But when I'm listening, I'm doing this a lot. Is that bothering other attendees, do you think? And other attendees tell me,
Yeah,
Candy's mouthing that it is a bad thing.
You know, it depends on the expression. If it's this one, you know, but, you know, if you're listening intently and that's your, you know, what you do naturally, we will read that. If it looks unnatural, we're going to read that and read something into it. But, you know, if this is just kind of that natural thing that that you do, you know, then go ahead and do that.
Dan, I don't think it's a bad thing. I do it myself. So
Okay.
say no, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm doing this right now as you're listening. I don't know what it is. You know, it's ever since I've grown out a beard, I just like to pluck it. But I hope it's not, you know, communicating that I'm not engaged, because I am. It's actually kind of that occupying my subconscious so that my conscious can pay direct attention to you.
I'm going to throw one more on for you that I picked up from our CEO. And before important meetings, she'll have a meeting with a couple of us internally and practice her handoffs. Because if you're in a meeting, you're going to be kicking it over to someone else and you're going to give them responsibilities, host responsibilities. CJ always has a session where she'll practice handing off and getting it back, so she doesn't fumble the ball while she's in the real meeting. If you're going to fumble in front of your friends.
Yeah, great idea. You know, going back to that practice, I hope I reinforced that a lot. You know, pointing out also, for example, you know, that my circuit breaker went. You know, whatever you're going to do, know how it's going to go. Yeah, well, thank you. I sure appreciate your time and attention. This is something that I really enjoyed doing and talking about. So I really am grateful that you were here and attentive. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. We will be sure to send out this link so we can watch it and get all the tips that we didn't get the first time. We can get them the second time. So that'll be coming out just as soon as Matthew has a chance to get us the link. So thanks again, Matthew.